Good morning. Welcome to another day of Daily in the Bible. Hope you've had a good week today. I know it's been a good week for me as well. We're going to read two verses here today, a little bit different. John chapter number 2. In John chapter 2, we're going to read verses number 1 and 2, a fairly well-known story here, but I think there's good, solid truth here today. Again, I do appreciate your faithfulness to these devotional videos, not only for this benefit of the channel, but also for your benefit, starting the day off right in the Bible. As always, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to follow this series. John chapter 2, look at verse number 1. Notice what it says. And the third day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there, that being Mary. Verse number 2, the Bible says, and both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. So here's what we know. We know there's a marriage in Cana of Galilee. The Bible says that Mary was there, but also it says but both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. So we know Mary was there, and Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. They were called, if you will. So as always, we're gonna break it down the verse, but not quite as much as we normally do. There's more of a single truth I want us to see here in these verses. They kind of go along with the whole story here. Again, it says the first part, and the third day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And again, and both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. If you're familiar with the rest of the story, you know that they ran out of wine at the wedding, at the marriage, and you know that Jesus said that famous line, "Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come." That's a very interesting study on its own as well, that Jesus was willing to change his timeline to benefit his mother. And by the way, that's not because Mary's some super official holy character. It's because that's his mother. And I think a lot of times men will do something for their mother they wouldn't do for somebody else. So I do find that interesting. But then Mary very simply just said, whatever Jesus says, do it. Then do it. Real simple. And by the way, we could all learn from that. It's real simple truth in Christianity. Whatever God said to do, just do it. But the simple truth I want us to see here is, as we get to this wedding, if you remember the story, if you're familiar with the story at all, they ran out of wine. Jesus had them go fill 6 water pots of stone. The Bible says they filled them up to the brim, and Jesus turned the water into wine. Again, a very well-known story. This is actually Jesus' first miracle in his earthly ministry. It really kicks off his earthly ministry. A very interesting story here. But I kind of want to look at this from a little bit different point of view. You can look at it from turning the water into wine. You can look at how good the wine was, because the governor of the feast there said that, you save the best wine for last, which is kind of opposite how you normally do it. But very simply, everything Jesus does is better than we can do. But what I want to see here, again, looking at verse number 1, notice it says, on the third day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee. So there's an event going on. By the way, our lives are very busy. We always have events going on. And maybe not always marriages, not always weddings, but we have church, and sometimes we have baseball practice and soccer practice, and we have dinner with somebody, and we're hanging out with different people. We have hobbies to attend to. We have jobs and careers, and we always have things going on. And that's what I see here. I see a thing going on. There was a marriage in Cana of Galilee. It says the mother of Jesus was there. Now, to kind of sum it up easily, here in verse number 1, if this verse stops in verse 1, if there is no verse 2 in this chapter, nothing else below verse 2 happens. If it was just a marriage and there was just a wedding and Mary was there, the water doesn't get turned into wine. The wine runs out. It's over. There's nothing more to drink as far as the wine is concerned, and there's no miracle. But the very fact that we have verse number 2, the very fact that verse 2 says, and both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. Mary wasn't going to turn the water into wine. The disciples weren't going to turn water into wine. That the other guests weren't going to do it. That the bride and the groom weren't going to do it. The governor wasn't. Nobody else was going to do it. What matters was those first 5 words of verse number 2, and both Jesus was called. Again, we all have different things going on in our life. We live very busy lives, very full schedules. And I'm sure today, with it being Friday, you probably have a full schedule ahead of you. And even when you get off work, you have stuff to do tonight. And you have the weekend coming up. You have all this stuff happening. I want to encourage you, though, just as we see here in John chapter 2, whatever event you have, whatever's on your schedule, make sure that when you go to it and when it's on your schedule, make sure you pray and make sure you invite Jesus to come with you, because Jesus changes things. Again, without Jesus, if it was just Mary, the disciples, and all the other guests, and the bride and the groom, and all this thing, this miracle doesn't happen. The only reason this wedding was special, the only reason we can read about it 2,000 years later was because, and both Jesus was called. Because Jesus was invited to the wedding, miracles happened. I think sometimes we get so busy in life, we forget to invite Jesus along with us. We'll go to work without Jesus. We go to school without Jesus. We go to the store and we drive through traffic, and we go to these different games, and the baseball games and soccer games, and we have all this stuff, and it's vying for our attention. We have a very busy schedule, all these events we go to, but we don't invite Jesus to come with us. So now the problem is we're at work 9 to 5 without Jesus. We're on the road without Jesus. We go to church without Jesus sometimes. We go to the ball games without Jesus. We go to the family outings without Jesus. We hang out with friends without Jesus. And the fact is, when Jesus is not there, we can't blame him for the results. When he's not there, it's all on us. And by the way, we're not very good. We're going to have bad results quite often. But when Jesus is there, he can literally do miracles. So I want to encourage you today. Here's my goal for you today. As you go out, you have a busy day, you go to work, whatever it is, maybe you're about to get in your car, you're about to start driving to work, maybe you're at work. Stop what you're doing and invite Jesus. You're going to be at work a long time, invite Jesus. You're going to drive an hour to work, invite Jesus. You got a busy day after you get off work and a lot of stuff to do, invite Jesus. Because I guarantee you, your day will be better no matter what you're doing in life if you invite Jesus to be a part of it. So often our lives get so busy, we get caught up living life without him. But the whole reason we have this whole story, the whole reason we have the first miracle, the water turned to wine, and all this stuff that we know about today is because Jesus was invited. Don't regret living your whole life and not inviting Jesus. First of all, you got to invite him. He's offering himself a free gift for salvation. If you're not saved, place your faith and trust in Jesus Christ. But all along the way, invite Jesus. Jesus is the perfect gentleman. What I mean by that is he's not going to go somewhere he's not invited. He's not going to show up and crash a party. He's not going to push your way into his way into your life. He's not going to force himself to be a part of your life. But if you invite him, the Bible says, "Seek and you shall find." It says, "Open the door, and I'll come into you." I mean, all throughout the Bible, he's a perfect gentleman. He'll never come if he's not asked. But very simply, when he's asked, he will come. You will find him, as the Bible says. But I want to encourage you today, as you go through life, as you go through today, invite Jesus along for the ride. You say, I don't really need him. I'm just going to work. Trust me, you need him. We all need him. It's a part of life. But I want to encourage you today to do that. I hope this was a help to you today. I hope you're having a good day, and God bless.